Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to a beautiful morning on the farm here. We got a little bit of, is it frost or is it condensation? No, it's frost. A little bit of frost this morning in some spots. Obviously the vehicle's a little bit down the hill. Yesterday was a tough day. We had two friends of the family unfortunately pass away. So it was a really tough day in that respect. Came home, we've got one sheep that's Kylie, actually named after Kylie Minogue, believe it or not. Had a lamb, doesn't want it. For yearling ewe, just not interested. And so we got her barred up in kind of a small pen, hoping to encourage that motherly instinct to take over. So we had to bottle feed the lamb last night after it did suck, but we had to bottle feed it again before bedtime here. So we're gonna run over and take a look at that right away. But first we're gonna go in the brooder here and check. So this is the other reason it was a tough day. We did come home and there was one dead chick, which, I mean, one out of 78. We bought 75, we got 78. One out of 78's not bad. And I don't know, I think it either got sat on or sat under the heat lamp for too long and just not smart enough to get out of the way. But that's the tough that's the tough thing that's happening today. Well, it looks like all our chicks are doing grand here this morning, so that's good. We can see their wingtips are definitely feathering out here, and so that's a really good identification for the sex of the chicks, whether there's a single step change or a double step change in their wingtip feather growth. So it looks like Kylie and her baby are doing all right in the back of the lambing shelter there. We're gonna leave them there for the day. Carmen will come out a couple times probably and just check on them, make sure the lamb's sucking. I did just help the lamb suck there. So it's got mama's milk, not bottle milk. As I said, I did have to give it a bottle last night just to make sure it didn't starve, but always the preference is gonna be mama's milk. And later today we might end up, because we're gonna use the milking stand for Sharon anyways, we may actually put Kylie in the milking stand too. And see if we can get the lamb sucking just there, just to see if, she's gonna kick, and because that's the biggest challenge when the young lamb is trying to get in there and the mother doesn't want it. She's just gonna kick him away, and then the lamb just kind of goes off by itself and they get lethargic and then they just ultimately starve. And it's not what we want to have happen at all. We want to encourage that motherly instinct to kind of kick in and take over. So we'll keep helping where we can. The other thing we did the other day, you see this giant pile of, well, what is it? Well, it's hay, old hay, and sheep manure, a little bit of straw. So it came from the bedding grounds up here. I haven't cleaned this out for the last 2 years, so there was kind of a big mound here that was starting to formulate. So I pushed it all up into a nice big pile, gave the lambs a wonderful playground. They'll come down here, they grump and run and do all kinds of stunts. They have the greatest time ever on here. But at the same time, we're building compost. So the sheep manure and a little bit of old hay makes for fantastic compost. So we'll see how much this starts to heat up over the next week here. So here we are back in the lambing shelter with Kylie and her little lamb there, and wouldn't you know it, got mama up and the lamb went up and has been able to get a little bit of a drink here. A little bit of a fuss, of course, but I think we're on the right path. I think this, maybe keep it in for another 24 to 48 hours and we'll be in good shape to let them out. Well, it's making for an interesting evening here. We've had, I wouldn't call it thunderstorms because we're not quite in thunderstorm season yet. There's been a little slight rumble, but mostly just some heavy downpours. As you can tell from the, we got some pretty big skies happening right now. A lot of interesting stuff. So we're expecting over the next day or two for the weather to get even more interesting. But for now, I'm gonna get ready. We're gonna head over to see Sharon, pen her up, let her lamb suck, milk her out the rest of the way, give that little milky treat to the pigs, and then I'm gonna fetch over some mulch with the tractor and start backfilling the garden beds. So I talked about backfilling the garden beds the other day, and I'm talking about deep mulching, not just like a layer of mulch. I'm talking about deep mulching, like 10 inches deep. The biggest lesson I learned last year, because I tried to do this straw mulch last year and went 2 to 3 inches deep, basically a nice blanket layer, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to block out oxygen, and some weeds did work their way through. And I mean, once they get daylight, they're long gone because the mulch is providing everything they need to keep out all the competition, right? So yeah, so we're gonna go really, really deep with the mulch today. So we got Sharon in the milking stand here now, and if there was any doubt as to how handy this thing was, like, this was honestly one of the best things we've ever put together. Has been an absolute lifesaver in keeping these lambs sustained, because boy, I mean, just have a look at that down there. How hard these lambs are on her. I mean, poor mama and her teeth, like, they just abuse her. You can see that's, I mean, that's blood on their lips, right? So every day we're giving her a shot of Vaseline just to try and ease some of the savagery of these lambs. Boy, oh boy. And they really prefer this left-hand side. I don't know why they prefer the left over the right, but that's we're really focusing on milking out the right side, making sure she doesn't get mastitis, because it's two lambs on one side and one on the other one, and the other one always seems to have it's quite engorged. So anyways, the pigs don't seem to mind if they get a little bit of milk in their bowl. I wasn't sure if I was going to catch that on camera or not, but there you go. These are the lamb shenanigans that we have here. It's like an amusement park. Who would have thought a compost pile, eh? Provides so many hours of fun. So I just had the tractor out here, and I dropped off 3 big tractor bucket loads of this straw mulch. It's old bedding, so it's mixed with obviously cattle manure, urine, all that kind of stuff. This stuff's gonna run pretty hot. And I mean, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So it's gonna sit in between the beds because it's running hot. It's gonna be really nitrogen rich, really phosphorus rich. It's actually gonna inhibit some growth in these walkways. The one thing we learned last year, like I said, is if you run it too thin, it actually promotes the weed growth. Like once they break through, they just take right off and you can't get ahead of them. So we're gonna put this layer in here as thick as we possibly can. And obviously over time, the nutrients from this are gonna seep into the beds and feed the plants, and hopefully be a little bit more filtered down than if they were put directly into the soil where the plants are trying to grow. So as you can see, I've only done 2 rows, and that's some pretty heavy work. So this may be a multi-day project. I may have bitten off a little bit more than I expected to chew, but I know it's the right path, because where there's mulch, there's not weeds. Where there's lots of mulch, I have peace of mind. So I will come back tomorrow and see if we can't do 3 beds tomorrow evening until we get all 7 done. And I think right now I'm gonna go grab some potatoes, because it's really nice potato plant weather right now. All right, so I've got my potatoes with an awful lot of sprout. Yes, this one has 18 inches, almost 2 feet of sprout. This one over here has a little bit less. It's decided to do some curly whirly nonsense. So we're gonna put some in the soil today. We're still, I mean, we're a ways off from May Long Weekend. May Long Weekend usually, as a rule of thumb, is kind of our last frost date. Usually if we get frost, it's a pretty hard frost then, but that's fine. We're just gonna plant, and we're gonna plant in the bed here. We're gonna put these about 6 inches deep. We're gonna cut a V trench in, and we're gonna lay the potato plant in just like this to fit the whole sprout, and then these will grow up and should form new potatoes all the way along the length of this sprout. Should. Last year this didn't work for us very well. This, I mean, you can see how small this is. This is why we're not chitting these potatoes. We're not doing anything with them, because they are smaller than the size of a chicken egg. That was pretty much the average size of our potatoes that we harvested last year. But that's, you know what, lesson learned. Again, we had a tough year in the garden, and we're expecting things to be much, much better this year. So it's pretty easy with a little trowel to just move some soil out of the way. It's a lot easier to do this year than it was last year. I was doing this with a pickaxe pretty much. So we'll just lay that in there. We'll try and get it so that as many of the sprouts facing upward as we possibly can. Obviously some like this one down here are just gonna face down, but we can kind of curl them around. And then we'll just fold that soil in. Oh, I just love how fluffy this well-aged compost that we made out of sheep manure and old bedding is working out for us. I really am excited to see how well this bed looks in the fall when we come to harvest. So then, now that one's all covered up, we're gonna just do another one right beside it on the opposite side of the bed. There you have it. That's one row of potatoes all planted there. We're only gonna do one row tonight. I don't want to put all my egg-sized potatoes in one basket. So yeah, we'll give it a couple days and then we'll plant the next row over, see how that fares, and then probably come back the following weekend and then just plant everything. By then we'll be close enough to the last frost date. There'll be less risk of loss of plants. There is a few here in the beginning of the row that I planted with the sprout. They planted a little bit closer together with the sprouts sticking out. And I already know what's going to happen there. They're going to produce less potatoes because the frost is going to nip these for sure. But what I'm looking to see is if I'm producing less potatoes off of one seedling, am I going to get bigger potatoes? So this is just a bit of an experiment. It's kind of some mixed reviews on the internet, and I just don't put a lot of faith in the internet. So we're just going to try it and see what happens. So we've got some sprouted up, and the rest are completely buried. So looking to have bigger potatoes here and more potatoes here, and we'll see what happens, right? I mean, we're just growing food. We're just having a good time and growing some food. So before I let you go for the evening, there's something really, really cool I just wanted to show you. My wife had this made for me here today. It is a two-handed, two-person pitchfork for those really big jobs. You know, if you ever go to clean out the barn or something like that. I thought, boy, oh boy, that's sure gonna come in handy. You know, when we spend our evenings out mucking out the sheep pen, it's just gonna be fantastic. No, I'm just kidding, seriously. No, this is a broad fork. Man, oh man, like this, I tell you, that girl must love me. I was just talking about this the other day, about how we didn't own a broad fork and how it was gonna be so much more effort to put in with a pitchfork. Well, what do you know? She went to a local welder and commissioned one. She had this custom made for me. So, honey, if you're watching this, I love you dearly. This is gonna be a game changer for the garden for sure. So how this works, you basically pick your spot in the yard, and easier if I had both hands, but get her down there as deep as you can go. And then you just lean back and you're just aerating the soil. And then you would go to the next spot and do it all over again. And you do this instead of tilling your garden every year. So you're aerating, allowing obviously oxygen, moisture, everything to get in there, loosening the soil, but not breaking up the soil structure. So let's sell the rototiller. Good thing I broke down last year and I haven't fixed it, because I'm not going to need it anymore. Anyway, on that note, I got some heavy duty gardening to do and lots of tea to drink. So I'm going to let you go for now. I hope you have a fantastic evening. We'll see you tomorrow.